Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, former US President Jimmy Carter says that discrimination and violence against women is the most serious global challenge of our time. He joins us to discuss why he's taking on the fight for women's rights. Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States and winner of the 2002 Nobel Peace Prize, is in the stream. President Carter, it's great to have you with us. Welcome. It's
always good to be with you and Al Jazeera and all the listeners around the world and viewers.
All right, are you ready to be quizzed by our online community?
I'm ready if you are.
All right. Okay, we're standing by. Malika Bilal is our digital producer. When we told our online community that President Carter was going to be here in the stream, what was the reaction?
Well, it was varied, but it looked something like awesome.
Okay.
There was a tweet that said yippee. And that's because over the years we've gotten several calls from our community to feature President Carter. This is just one of them. This one came in from the UAE. Here's another call, and this one's coming from Pennsylvania. So today, for those of you at home, you'll get a chance to ask President Carter your questions on today's topic. All you have to do is use the hashtag AJStream.
My name is Taina Bieneme. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women, and I am in the stream.
Back in 2014, President Jimmy Carter wrote a book called A Call to Action: Women, Religion, Violence and Power. In it, he addresses the suffering inflicted upon women and draws upon his own experiences and the testimony of women from different regions to demonstrate that they are being denied equal rights. This week, the Carter Center has been hosting a forum called Beyond Violence: Women Leading for Peaceful Societies. The event brings together human rights advocates from 20 countries to talk about the advancing rights of women and girls. To help us discuss these issues with President Carter, we're also joined by Manal Omar, Acting Vice President of the Middle East and Africa Center at the United States Institute of Peace, and Seema Samar is Chairperson of the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission and the former Minister of Women's Affairs in Afghanistan. Great to have you all here in the stream. Mr. President, this is very bold of you to say women's rights and equality, the most unaddressed problem in the world, the most important. How do you back that up?
Well, there's no doubt that it's the most terrible human rights violation on earth, and it exists among almost half the people who live on earth. There are 160 million girls missing from the face of the earth who've been killed by their parents at birth because they prefer sons instead of daughters. And some governments we know require that families be very small and they prefer boys. This is one very serious problem. Another one is that women are discriminated against in the holding of public offices and in the holding of good jobs. They also suffer very seriously from genital mutilation. In Egypt, for instance, 90% of all the females living today have had their genitals mutilated when they were young girls. And this is another thing that's very serious for all of us. So women are deprived of equal rights everywhere they live, in every country on earth, and prostitution makes possible the more serious, I would say, slavery trade in the world now than even existed in the 19th century when everybody was concerned about it. In Atlanta, Georgia, we have between 200 and 300 people sold into slavery every month in Atlanta, Georgia, where I live and where the Carter Center is located. These are the kind of things that go on every day, and also in the U.S. military. We have last year 16,000 cases of sexual assault. And in our university system in America, which is one of the best in the world, about 1 out of 5 girls who enter as freshmen are sexually assaulted before they graduate from college. These are the kind of things that go on and nobody knows about it, and not enough people care.
So, Mr. President, you just reeled off 5 or 6 issues there just in the space of a minute and a half or so. How do you get people to even focus and decide, okay, let's tackle this as an issue? Or are you just trying to get everybody just to think in a different paradigm and actually think about the world from a women's perspective?
Well, I wrote a book last year about this same subject, and it sold several 100,000 copies, and I sent a copy to every head of government on earth, including the Pope in Rome,
yes,
and urge them to correct the problems that exist in the misinterpretation of Holy Scriptures, and also the increasing resort to violence in the world, and making violence kind of a normal thing to do. And when the violence is perpetrated in a community, quite often it's the girls and women who suffer from the violence of different kinds. Another thing that I did mention before is honor killings, where families see one of their innocent daughters raped by a stranger, and the families will interpret that as a disgrace on the family itself, and they themselves will murder their own daughter or their own sister because she's brought disgrace on the family. These are the kind of things that are accepted as normal in some societies on earth. They need to be corrected.
When you sent your book around the world, who actually wrote back? Who responded?
We had responses from about 40% of all the heads of state on earth.
Okay.
In fact, the Pope wrote me back, Pope Francis, whom I really admire, and he said he would anticipate that the role of women in the Catholic Church, for instance, would be increasing greatly in future years. So that's another very encouraging thing, just among all the members that have responded to me.
Well, President Carter, I want to raise with you some of the things our community has brought up that are important to them, and you've already talked about them, so I just want to show you that these are issues that they care about also. Debo on Twitter says that he wanted to hear you talk about female genital mutilation, domestic violence. Miss K writes in that one of the issues close to her heart was honor killing, so they're happy that you brought those up. But I want to direct this next tweet to you. This is from Andy, and she has a question. She says, social visibility goes a long way in the fight for equal rights. Unfortunately, in the U.S., women are still denied that spot. What do you make of that perception?
Well, the United States, in the measurement that the World Economic Forum issues every year, the United States ranks 23rd among the nations of the world in treating women equally to men. And a lot of this is because women are hired later. There are 500 big corporations in the Fortune 500. Only 23 of them have women CEOs. They are paid less than the men are. And women, we know, for doing full year's work, get paid about 23% less than an average man. Also, women are much greatly deprived in holding equal rights on local, state, and public elected officials as those. And so these are the kind of things that deprive women of an equal right. And also we know that women don't have equal rights in education and other things, although lately in our university system we've had, I'd say, a majority of women who are graduating from most disciplines, not particularly the science and technology and mathematics and engineering, but other things women are doing fairly well. But the progress is very slow and very tardy and much overdue, and it's not existing in all the countries on earth.
Manal, you were sitting in the forum. Manal, go ahead. You were sitting in the forum on women, which was at the Carter Center with President Carter. What did you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to just jump in quickly first to echo my gratitude to President Carter for really bringing attention to this very important issue. And the reality is the work on the ground isn't enough. We do need high level and high profile people to talk about how important it is. And one of my mantras is it's not nice to talk about women, it's necessary. I mean, we now know that we will not have economic growth, we will not have increase in education, we're not going to have stability or any sustainable peace while women remain absent. And what I was hoping that the President Carter can help shed light on is, despite the facts and the understanding of how essential women are to any progress, they continue to be missing, and I'm often baffled at how to convince policymakers. How do we get decision makers to actually act? I mean, we have the recommendations, we know what needs to be done, and yet nothing is done. How do we bridge that rhetoric to reality?
Can I jump in?
Let's let President Carter answer that one thing first, and then we'll come back to you, Seema.
Right,
President Carter.
Well, I think
Okay.
every country should realize that they have 100% of their citizens available for productive labor and for making the nation itself be prosperous and happy, and a happy group of people. And when you deprive 50% of your total population from equal rights to education and to jobs and to productivity, then you handicap your own country by discriminating against women and girls. And I mentioned earlier the horrible problem of slavery in these modern days. And 80% of all the people sold into slavery across international borders are girls who are sold into sexual slavery. And a lot of the countries kind of promote prostitution And when they don't want to do anything about prostitution, they just arrest the girls instead of arresting the brothel owners and the pimps and the male customers. These are the kind of things that we're trying to change on a global basis to make sure women and girls do have a chance to be productive citizens and take care of their parents in their old age, and then also make the country economically prosperous.
Seema, jump in, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that the President Carter will take our concern to the policymakers within the Washington. Secondly, I think the violence against women continues all over the world, but in different form and different level. And a violation of human rights, women's rights, is a violation against human dignity. And unfortunately, it continues without any accountability and justice. So I think the impunity on violence against women, which is going on in almost in every country, end up with more brutal and inhuman kind of violation against women all over the world in this century, in these days. So we need to act collectively in order to end the violation of women's rights and human rights in the country. Because if we do not respect women's rights, it means that we do not respect our own dignity and human dignity.
Seema, what do you think that President Carter can actually do? What do you think his power is?
Well, first of all, I think I am very, very glad that he is raising the issue, because we don't have a lot of leaders who are talking about this issue. Yeah. Secondly, I think he can take the information from the meeting that we had in the last few days in Carter Center to Washington in order to make better policy.
Okay, so hold tight, Seema. Seema, hold tight for a second, because I want to see if that's actually what President Carter intends to do. President Carter, do you have that power that people feel that you have a lot of sway, you have a lot of influence? Are you going to go to Washington with concerns that Seema has, that Manal have, that some of the human rights advocates have, that you gathered together?
Well, you just saw a photograph on the screen, I believe, of Senator Gillibrand from New York, who's become, I would say, the foremost leader within the U.S. Senate to try to do away with discrimination in the military itself. And she's tried to pass a law, and I hope, and we're probably going to be helping her, to make sure that when a rapist in the military performs that horrible crime, that they are punished. Now the chief executive officer of a ship or a battalion or company of men can block any sort of perpetration of a penalty against a rapist. The same thing goes on in the university system that we have. I just mentioned how many of the women who enter colleges in the United States are raped before they get out of college. And one of the reasons is that the boys who do this are serial rapists quite often. They know that when they get into college, if they rape a girl, they won't be punished for it. The impunity that was mentioned earlier is a very serious thing. These are the kind of things that can be changed by law and by the activity of the government. As a matter of fact, the Department of Education, which I established when I was President of the United States, now have singled out almost 100 universities in America that have been named as perpetrating these kind of crimes against women on the campus by serial rapists who are boys on the campus, and the boys are not punished because of it, and they know they're not going to be punished. This kind of thing has got to be changed.
See, President Carter, I hear you being a very vocal advocate, but how close do you get to these issues? Have you been on university campuses? Have you spoken to young women? How connected do you get?
Well, for instance, I teach at Emory University. It's one of the colleges mentioned. In the past few weeks, I've been at Harvard University, Yale University, and also at other places. And I spoke to about 10,000 members of the Academy of Religion in our universities. These are people who teach in our universities that are religious in nature, at seminaries and so forth, where pastors and priests are trained. So yes, I do all that I can to get them, and I was also at Princeton just recently. So all of these communities had very large crowds to hear me speak. And when I said, why does any college president want to have a serial rapist as a student on his campus, the students stood up and cheered because they were waiting for this kind of statement to be made.
President Carter, a lot of what I'm seeing online is people linking some of these rights violations to conflict zones. So there's a tweet here from Nafizi who says, traditionally war is regarded as an exclusively men's zone. Therefore, women find it difficult to engage in resolving these crises. And we have a video comment here from someone who picks up on that. This is actually from a conference participant. So have a listen to what she had to say.
Given the humanitarian crises that are occurring right now around the world, and given the fact that we want to focus long-term as well on women, peace, and security, what is the priority? What is our game plan? And what do we begin with?
President Carter, how do you even go about making a game plan? What do you start with?
Well, one of the
I
problems
think
is
that
even when the United Nations passes a resolution in the United Nations Security Council, like they did 15 years ago, with United Nations Security Council Resolution number 1325, it mandates, it guarantees that in any sort of peace negotiation in the world in which the United Nations is participating, that women have to be in the forefront of the negotiators for peace, because the women are the ones who know what it means to have peace, and they're the ones who quite often espouse peace when the men are quite often controlled by the industrial military complex who just wants to get rich on having war. So women have a much greater commitment to peace inherently than do men, because they know the problems within the family, and they're the ones that suffer when the men go off to war by bombing and also by rape in war zones. These are the kind of things that women know much more than men.
Let me bring back in Manal. Seema, we'll get to you as soon as we get to Manal. Manal, you go first.
Yeah, I just wanted to pause 1 second, because I think one of the things that's very different about this forum that I experienced, and about what President Carter was just saying a moment earlier ago, that is essential and in my opinion has been missing in the past 2 decades that I've worked on women's issues, is the fact that President Carter is including America and U.S. issues in this global issue of women's rights. Too often conferences are singling out overseas or conflict zones without acknowledging that it's truly global. This allows a lot of legitimacy for President Carter to then comment on overseas issues. And I just wanted to make sure that we paused and recognized that difference. I also wanted to just ask President Carter a question about engaging religious and tribal leaders. It was a discussion that happened over the last 2 days, and there's some resistance because there's a fear that by engaging them that you're elevating them above rule of law, but there's also a reality that by not engaging them, we may not be able to change from within institutions. And how do we reconcile those two feelings?
One of the most important things that happened this last 2 days has been the outpouring of leaders from Islamic communities throughout the world who have come to the center to give their testimony that they are mandating that under the Quran in the Islamic world, that men and women should be treated equally before God or before Allah. And this is very important. Quite often Christians are not nearly so forthcoming as are the Muslims in saying, let's correct the problem that exists in our world. And we know that the misinterpretation of the Holy Scriptures, no matter what the religion might be, is one of the major causes of discrimination against women, because if a man believes that his religious leaders are telling him that women are not equal to men before God, then they feel at ease in cheating women or abusing women physically or depriving women of an equal pay compared to men if they are an employer. So this is a root cause of the discrimination against women, is a misinterpretation of the Holy Scriptures.
Seema?
Yes, I think I fully agree with the President Carter said and my other colleagues said, but I would like to say that the violence against women is not only in the conflict zone. It is existing everywhere, but as I said, that in different level. What is really important that we all should push for accountability for ending the culture of impunity in the violence against women, and to recognize that the women are important part of humanity. So the violence against them is violence against humanity. So that we should really recognize and push for improvement of the situation of human rights of women, because we cannot have humanity without women's existence. So if we really have violence against women within the family, within the society, we cannot expect peace in the society, in the country, or in the world.
You know, what everybody should do, men and women around the world, leaders and also just private citizens, is to assume that violence against a woman or a girl is the same as torture. Because
Absolutely.
quite often because this is done with impunity, and quite often if a husband abuses his wife or if a boyfriend abuses his girlfriend, or if a male student abuses a girl on the same college campuses, or if an officer or enlisted man in the military abuses a girl, or a fellow soldier or sailor just because they're a girl, that is a horrible crime, and they ought to be treated as crime and treated on the same basis as torture.
Yeah.
It's crimes against humanity, and it should be treated that way.
Let me just bring in the community. Malika.
Well, there's a question here that I wanted to pose to the president. Unify is asking on Twitter, which countries can be a model for women's rights, and what are they doing right? So talking about successes there.
Well, the United States is lagging behind, as I've already said. I would say some of the other countries are doing well. The best in this hemisphere, in the Western Hemisphere, happens to be Nicaragua. And the best of all has been, I would say, Iceland, Switzerland, and the Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland. They would be at the top of the list of those who treat women on an equal basis as men. If anybody's interested in this, the World Economic Forum publishes a list every year of nations in order of their achievement of giving women equal rights, and you can look it up on the internet if you're interested in seeing how your country does rank. Quite often the countries in the Middle East rank quite low, but the United States doesn't have anything to brag about either. I think Canada is 22nd in the world, and the United States is 23rd. So this is because we deprive women of an equal right to hold public office at the local, state, and national level, and also we deprive women of an equal right to earn the same income for the same kind of work.
Mr. President, we're almost at the end of this program. I'm looking here at my laptop at this website, forumonwomen.cartercent.org. You, for the last day and a half, have gathered together human rights advocates from around the world. They've all been talking, they've been sharing their ideas with you. Now what?
Well, we hope they'll look at Forum on Women, which is our website, and from now on, we hope that all the activists in the world, including those that were at our session this last 2 days and also last year, will be involved. But everybody that is interested in the subject of just doing away with discrimination and abuse of women and girls should go online and add their contribution, ask their questions. We'll be glad to answer them, and join in this crusade to end, as I said before, this most horrible and unaddressed abuse or crime against any human being, and that is against women and girls throughout the world.
And finally, we've been talking about one of your books based on, which is what the forum was sort of based about, which is looking at equality for women and how women are suffering around the world and how we should pay more attention to them. But you've written 28 books, and there's one title that just stood out as I've been watching you over the last couple of days and on this show, The Art of Aging. In a nutshell, can you share? Because I want to be like you. If I live to be 91, I want to be just like you. What did you do?
You know, that book was a very interesting book, because I point out that when you do reach, say, retirement age, that is, you don't have to work every day to earn a living for you and your family, then that gives you a new degree of freedom, which you probably haven't had any other time in your life.
Okay.
You can take up writing a book. I've written 29 books. I just finished my 29th one, as a matter of fact.
I left one off the list. Sorry about that, Mr. President. Well, thank you very much.
I've enjoyed 69 years with my wife. I'm 90 years old.
All right.
Still going strong, and this is one of my top priorities, is to do away with discrimination against women and
Maybe
girls.
the secret is Mrs. Carter. I don't think she'll come and live with me, but never mind. President Carter, Manal Omar, Seema Samar, thank you so much for being guests on the stream. We've really enjoyed your company. Join us for the next show when we'll be talking about bioethics, one baby with 3 biological parents. I know we'll explain the science tomorrow. Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's great having you on the stream. Take care.
Hello, my name is Jimmy Carter, and I'm in the stream.
Okay. Hi, I'm Manal Omar. I'm Vice President of Middle East and Africa Center at the U.S. Institute of Peace, and I'm in the stream.
Yes, I'm Seema Samar, the chairperson of Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, and I'm on the stream. Okay. I'm Seema Samar. I'm the chairperson of Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, and I'm in the stream.